It was still dark early in the morning when my phone suddenly rang. Still groggy, I reached for the bedside table and checked the screen. It was a call from my sister-in-law. I looked at the clock. It was 6:30 a.m. What could it be so early in the morning? "Hello, Hillary? Is something wrong?" I answered the phone with my half-asleep voice. "Hey, Amy. Sorry, I had a little accident." My sister-in-law's voice sounded light and almost amused. "What? An accident? What do you mean?" I was instantly awake and jumped out of bed. "I mean, I had an accident with your car. I've told you many times, right?" There was a hint of suppressed laughter in her voice over the phone. I was confused. Today was supposed to be a work day for both my husband and me. My car was in the driveway, and I always carried the keys. How could this be? "Wait a minute. How did you even get my car?" Before I could finish, she let out a laugh. "Sorry for the accident. But it wasn't on purpose, so you'll forgive me, right?" I was at a loss for words, unable to accept this reality, and my mind went blank. "My name is Amy. I am 28 years old and work for a company that manufactures automobile parts. I live with my husband, Nathan, who is a year older than me. I consider myself a quiet person, but others often tell me I am internally strong. I lived with my parents and grandfather until high school. My grandmother had passed away before I was born, so I never met her. My family has always been car enthusiasts, and I grew up surrounded by cars. My grandfather especially adored me. On days off, he would often take me driving and taught me about cars. My grandfather's catchphrase was, "One must take responsibility for oneself." This phrase is something I vividly remember him saying while stroking his beard. Naturally, I came to love cars as well and went to a university outside the state I grew up in after graduating from high school, where I currently work. On weekends, I visit dealers and rental car shops, enjoying drives in various cars, from compact cars to luxury vehicles. I first met my husband, Nathan, at a dealership. He was the first staff to serve me. After many conversations, we became close, and on our days off, we enjoyed drives and car modifications together, naturally leading to a relationship. We got married 2 years after we started dating. My grandfather really liked Nathan as a fellow car enthusiast. When we visited my parents' home, we often went driving in my grandfather's classic car. Since my entire family loves cars, we all got along well. One day, while washing my car, my smartphone, tucked in my pocket, began to vibrate vigorously. I washed my soapy hands and checked the phone. It was a call from my mother. "Mom, what's up?" "Amy, your grandfather's condition has suddenly worsened. They say tonight might be critical." My mother conveyed this calmly, probably trying not to worry me excessively. "What, grandfather? I understand. I'll be right there." My grandfather had been battling cancer for 3 years and had been in and out of the hospital recently. I had braced myself knowing it wouldn't be long, but I didn't expect this moment to come so soon. "Don't rush, drive safely," my mother said as she hung up. Since Nathan was at work, I contacted him and then headed to the hospital alone. Normally, it takes about 3 hours from our house to the hospital, but it took us 4 hours that day due to the heavy Saturday traffic. When I arrived at the hospital room, my grandfather seemed to have waited for my arrival before peacefully passing away with a serene expression. I gripped my grandfather's large hand and cried. His hand was as warm as when he used to take me for rides in his car. After a while, Nathan arrived, and as I was hunched over crying, he quietly rubbed my back without saying a word. His kindness made my tears unstoppable. After the funeral, my parents said they had something to tell us, so we stopped by their house. My grandfather, knowing his life was not long, had left a will. In it, he wished to pass on his cherished classic car to me. "This car is filled with your grandfather's memories," my father said. "Amy, take good care of it and use it well." I took over the car, maintaining and replacing its parts when necessary, and cherished it on weekends. Every time I drove the car, I could vividly recall my memories with my grandfather. About a year after my grandfather's funeral, we visited my parents' home again for a meeting with my in-laws. My sister-in-law, Hillary, is 2 years younger than me, at 26, and currently lives with her parents. She is tall, slim, and flashy. After the meeting, as we headed to the parking lot, my sister-in-law asked, "Is this your car?" I told her about inheriting it from my grandfather. "Him, I see. But that car doesn't really suit you," Hillary remarked dismissively. My husband was chatting some distance away, so he didn't hear this conversation. I felt a twinge of annoyance inside, but since it was a celebration, I didn't want to cause a scene, so I held back my words. Hillary had always looked down on me and said mean things when my husband or his parents weren't around. However, she usually pretends to be nice on the surface, so the rest of the family hasn't noticed. The next Saturday after the meeting, I was vacuuming at home when the doorbell rang. Thinking it was a courier, I opened the door only to find Hillary standing there. "Hi, Amy. I just came to visit." Hillary." I was surprised by the sudden visit. Normally, you'd expect someone to call ahead of time, right? "Hope you don't mind if I come in," she said, and walked into the house as if it were her own, sitting on the living room sofa with her legs crossed. Unable to refuse, I decided to serve her some coffee. "Hey, I'd love to take your car for a drive," Hillary said. I understand her desire to drive the classic car since she likes cars too, but I wish she would have contacted me beforehand. My husband was at the dealership working again that day, and he usually works on weekends, so our days off rarely coincide. Since I had some free time, I took Hillary for a drive for about an hour. That was so much fun. I want a car like this too. Let me drive next time. Hillary seemed satisfied as she left. However, after that, she began visiting my house every time she had a day off. The doorbell rang in the quiet house. Could she be here again? "Amy, if you only drive the car on days off, why not give it to me?" Hillary started asking me to give her the car every time she visited. "I've told you many times that car is my grandfather's keepsake. I can't just give it away." I keep refusing, saying the car is a cherished memento from my grandfather, but Hillary shows no signs of giving up. Don't be like that. Then give it to me as a wedding gift. We're family, so it shouldn't matter who uses it, right? Lately, she's been saying she wants the car as a wedding gift. When I asked why she was so fixated on this car, she explained that a rival at work drives a luxury car, and she wanted something to compete with that. Hillary, being a car enthusiast, knew that this classic car was trading at high prices in the current market, so she thought it would be perfect to compete with her rival. For that reason, I refused even more strongly. Why won't you give it to me? It's just going to waste with you. Her obsession grew stronger over time, and I started carrying the car keys with me at all times as a security measure. Feeling that it was difficult to resolve this issue by myself, I consulted my husband and his parents, asking them to persuade her to give up on the car. After that, Hillary stopped coming to our house, and just when I thought I could relax, that incident occurred. I rushed to Hillary's location in a panic. There, my car was a wreck, having collided with a telephone pole. I always carried the keys, so how could this have happened? Fortunately, there were no injuries, including Hillary, but the bumper was completely destroyed, and there were marks on the door as if it had been hit with something hard. Could Hillary have hit it? Because the car was old, repairs would be expensive, and many parts that are no longer manufactured would make it essentially a total loss. As I stood there in shock, Hillary looked at me with a smirk. Sorry. It wasn't on purpose. Keep it a secret from my brother and our parents. We're family, so you'll forgive me, right? She showed no sign of remorse, rather. She seemed to enjoy my reaction. All right, I won't tell Nathan and the others, but how did you get my car keys, Hillary? I secretly switched them when I visited your house during Easter. My husband and I, wanting to show our appreciation, invite his parents every Easter for delicious food and drinks, and they stay at our house. This year, Hillary came too, and I couldn't just send her back alone, so she stayed, but it seems she switched the keys while I was in the bath. I never imagined Hillary would do something like this. It's your fault, Amy. I've been saying I wanted that car for so long, but you never gave it to me. Even my brother and dad scolded me for coveting someone else's property. I could have used that car more effectively. Hillary deliberately caused an accident knowing she couldn't have the car. It's unbelievable that someone would take and destroy someone else's precious possession. I was shaking with anger, clenching my fists tightly. Seeing my reaction, Hillary said with a smile, but it's also your fault for not noticing the keys were switched. This is a family matter, so let's call it a draw. Keep it a secret from the family. As Hillary walked away satisfied, I murmured softly, "Keep it within the family, huh?" After confirming she was gone, I immediately called the police. I took photos of the accident scene from all angles while waiting for the police and explained to the arriving officer that my car had been taken without permission and involved in an accident. I also had them confirm the marks of violence left on the car after the accident, and it was deemed malicious, so I filed a victim report. After returning home, I submitted a claim to the insurance company with the photos I had taken. Still seething with anger, I approached dinner time. It was quite sudden, but I ended up going to my in-laws' house and having a meal with my sister-in-law Hillary, my husband Nathan, and their parents. Hillary seemed anxious that I might bring up the car issue, but outwardly she was proceeding with meal preparations as usual. Then she even sported a disdainful smile. During the dinner preparations, the in-laws' landline phone suddenly rang. "Yes, hello," my mother-in-law hurried to answer it and then exclaimed in surprise, "What?" With a puzzled look, she handed me the receiver. "Amy, it seems to be a call from the insurance company about the car accident." I took the receiver with a smile. I had previously requested the insurance company to contact me at my in-laws' landline instead of my mobile phone. I received confirmation of the accident and an explanation of the documents needed for the online application, which I noted down. Nathan, sensing something from my reactions and the notes, asked worriedly, "An accident? Are you okay?" As the conversation continued, it became clear that it was Hillary who had the accident, not me, and everyone was furious and started questioning her. Hillary glared at me and then suddenly started crying. Amy said I could drive, but the brakes were broken, and when the accident happened, Amy just laughed and ran away. She tried to kill me by putting me in that broken car. That's not possible. Amy, you were supposed to be working, weren't you? When did you even ride together? Nathan countered. Hillary screamed and tried to pin the blame on me, but her contradictions were quickly pointed out, and she fell silent. As soon as I glanced at the clock and looked back at Hillary, the landline rang again. I answered the phone and handed her the receiver saying, "It seems to be for you." The moment Hillary fearfully took the receiver, her face went pale. "Who is it?" my mother-in-law asked, but Hillary looked away without answering. Unable to bear it any longer, my father-in-law took the receiver and, after listening, exclaimed, "The police." "Hillary, the police say they need to speak to you at the station about the accident. What's going on?" My usually calm father-in-law was struggling to contain his anger as he questioned her, and Hillary started trembling in fear. Then, glaring at me, she shouted, "Amy, this isn't what we agreed." I responded calmly. The only ones I spoke to were the police and the insurance company. Just like you said, I haven't told Nathan or your father anything. Hillary, trembling with anger and eyes red, screamed. Everyone is being deceived by her. Amy is the one lying. In response to Hillary's insistence, I sighed deeply and played the conversation I had recorded on my smartphone. Actually, when I received the call about the accident, a colleague advised me as I rushed out of the office, "You should record this on your mobile. It will help avoid disputes over who said what later, and recording video might provoke them, so secure an audio recording first." Following the advice of a colleague who had experienced trouble after a traffic accident, I had started recording the moment I faced Hillary. Naturally, all her unreasonable accusations and her threats of keep quiet, because we're family, were recorded. Hearing the playback from my smartphone, Hillary's complexion turned even paler. "I've already submitted this to both the police and the insurance company, so lying now won't do you any good." There was no escape for her now. Hearing this, Nathan and his parents were furious, and my father-in-law scolded her sternly. "Hillary, Can't you distinguish between right and wrong? What you've done is no different from theft. You need to compensate Amy for the car." When he said that, Hillary defiantly replied, "I can't pay, I have no savings." "Then, I'll cover it for now. I'll use the $30,000 we saved for your wedding, so make sure you pay it back." Hillary looked up and pleaded, "Please, Dad, not that. If you do that, my marriage will be ruined." "Amy, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We're family, right?" she begged while crying. "Enough. Being family doesn't excuse anything. What you did is akin to theft, and deliberately damaging the car is unforgivable. Being family means you should fulfill your financial responsibilities properly. Reflect on your actions." Understanding that my father-in-law wouldn't change his mind, Hillary left the room without eating, her shoulders slumped. My parents-in-law and Nathan apologized to me repeatedly on behalf of Hillary, since the car that was a cherished memento of my grandfather was destroyed. Accepting the money, I decided to withdraw the complaint. I received the $30,000 from them immediately, but it still wasn't enough to cover the car repair costs. Unable to afford any further expenses, I reluctantly decided to let go of the car. "Grandpa, I'm sorry," I whispered, as I watched the car being towed away. Later, while relaxing in the living room, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Opening the door, I saw Hillary standing there, pale and frightened. Despite my wariness, she apologized at the entrance. "Amy, I'm really sorry about the car." Surprised and mindful of the neighbors, I invited Hillary inside. I let her sit on the living room sofa and listen to her story. According to Hillary, misfortunes had followed one after another since the day she destroyed my car. The funds for her wedding were gone, and when she discussed it with her fiancé, he broke off the engagement saying, "If you don't have savings, we can't get married," and he quickly married the woman Hillary had considered a rival. Moreover, they sent her an invitation to their wedding, and at work, she was either treated like an outcast or mocked. Despite her efforts to outperform her former fiancé and his new wife at work, she faced continuous issues like her alarm clock malfunctioning on important days, leading to her arriving late for a crucial meeting with a client, which resulted in her bonus being halved. Although Hillary had faced one misfortune after another in her attempts at new relationships, from being mistakenly accused by a woman of being a man's mistress to finding out that a man who approached her at a mixer was actually married, she wondered if this was all a curse from my grandfather. I found that unbelievable. She then explained that she had come to apologize to break this streak of bad luck. "Amy, I really regret the car incident. Could you please do something about your grandfather?" "Hillary, that's not possible," I responded in disbelief. Hillary, driven to tears, pleaded, "I'm really cursed. Help me." Although normally one wouldn't believe such things, Hillary was clearly worn down by her continuous misfortunes and was unable to think clearly. Feeling pity, I said, "Hillary, if you consult a psychologist and start repaying the $30,000 your father covered, even little by little, I'll forgive you for the car incident." Hillary, who had been crouching and holding her head, looked up with relief after confirming, "Really?" Afterward, Hillary gradually stabilized mentally, got a job at a nearby factory, and started working hard at her new workplace. She has been paying part of her monthly salary to her parents, seemingly deeply remorseful. Though I had said I forgave her to resolve the situation, I hadn't fully forgiven her yet and hadn't met her since. According to Nathan, Hillary is scared of large, bearded old men. She dreams of a big, bearded grandfather chasing her, saying, "Take your own responsibility." She keeps seeing this dream until she lives right, and just seeing someone who looks similar scares her. I was shocked to hear this because those were my grandfather's exact words. My grandfather, who was tall and bearded, often said, "Take your own responsibility," and Hillary had never met him. If her story is true, my grandfather might indeed be appearing in her dreams. Rather than hoping he would haunt her, I wished for his peace and quietly muttered to myself, "Grandpa, I'm okay now." Thanks to him, Hillary seemed to have changed for the better and started living a responsible life. This might lead to a good familial relationship in the future. 6 months later, Hillary contacted me. "Amy, do you have a moment? I stopped having those dreams about that bearded old man." Her voice was bright and lacked the forcefulness and arrogance of before. "That's great." "Yes, but it's strange. In the last dream he smiled and said, 'You've done well, all is well now,' and he hasn't appeared since then." I gasped in surprise. Those were the kind of words he would say. "Amy, I really want to change. I never want to hurt anyone again. So if it's okay with you, could we visit his grave together? I want to apologize properly to him." Hillary's voice was devoid of her previous arrogance, and she looked genuinely remorseful. I thought for a moment and then agreed, "Okay, let's go together this Sunday." That day, we stood before my grandfather's grave. Hillary apologized deeply and maintained a long silence. "Grandpa, I'm truly sorry. Thank you." Tears were welling up in Hillary's eyes. I too joined my hands quietly and spoke to my grandfather in my heart, "Thank you, Grandpa. We're getting by all right." On the way back from the grave visit, Hillary spoke to me. "Amy, once I save up enough, I want to find and buy the same model car as your grandpa's keepsake and have you drive it. Until then, I'll keep working hard, hoping for him to watch over us." Seeing Hillary's earnest gaze, I nodded quietly. "Thank you, Hillary. I'm sure my grandpa would be happy." As we looked out the car window, I reflected. People can change. Sometimes, mysterious forces help facilitate that change. While we no longer have my grandfather's precious car, we have regained our family bond, which might be what he wanted the most. Our journey ahead is long, but now we have the strength and hope to walk through it, believing that somewhere, my grandfather is watching over us.